What do you make of the president's decision to give this another 50 days? Is this the right move right now?
I think what we have seen is that Vladimir Putin is not going to come to the table to negotiate in any real serious way unless he is feeling a lot more pressure than he has to date from the Trump administration. So I think we need to take up and pass the Graham-Blumenthal legislation. It has 85 co-sponsors in the Senate. It's bipartisan. It would send a very strong message to Putin and the Russians and all of those who continue to do business with Russia, buying Russian oil, that the United States is serious and we are paying attention to what's going on. I think the announcement that NATO is going to provide weapons, particularly those Patriot missile defense systems that Ukraine so desperately needs as they are under nightly attack from Russia against Kyiv and civilian populations all across the country, is welcome news, and we need to do everything we can to see that that moves as quickly as possible.
Senator, President Trump suggested in the Oval Office today that there's no real difference between a 100% secondary tariff on a country like China or India that's buying Russian oil compared to the 500% in the piece of legislation we're discussing. What to you would change the calculus for Russia when we're comparing a 100% levy like this to 500%?
Listen, I think if we are serious and if we actually implement those sanctions and follow through and ensure that we police them in ways that prevent India, China, the countries that are buying oil from Russia with a shadow fleet from actually being able to buy that fuel to be able to reimburse Russia for those costs, then we are going to go a long way towards shutting down Russia's war machine because they will not have the funding they need to continue to operate it.
Would love your thoughts on this weapons arrangement that the president rolled out today, Senator, as a key lawmaker who supported the Biden administration's efforts to arm Ukraine. What do you think of this idea as we get to the end of the weapons package that you already approved, having NATO buy American weapons and provide them to Kyiv? Will Ukraine get what it needs? Is this sustainable?
Well, I think it's an important step forward. At the NATO summit, I had a chance to meet with President Zelensky. He talked about the willingness of Ukraine to pay for weapons that they were not expecting a handout. We also talked to a number of European leaders who were talking about how they could continue to provide Ukraine with what they need for weapons and buy some of those weapons from the US. Of course, NATO is the best way to do that. And we know that we have seized Russian assets in Europe, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in those seized assets. There is interest coming in on what's the holdings of those assets that can be used for some of these weapons purchases. So I think however we can make that work is important, because the most critical thing is to ensure that Ukraine gets what it needs to continue the conduct of this war, to fight back against Russia, and that we put significant pressure on Vladimir Putin and Russia to get to the negotiating table. The fact is, I'm pleased to see the turnaround in President Trump's language. He finally seems to understand that he's been played by Vladimir Putin for months, and he seems to be getting serious about ensuring that we do something to put pressure on Russia.
Well, if pressure on Russia might necessitate pressure on China, Senator, as we consider this prospect of secondary sanctions or tariffs, however we want to characterize that, knowing China is such an important trading partner of ours, that's why so much focus has been put on the level of tariffs our country and theirs have on each other. Do you worry about the potential economic ramifications here at home?
I don't. And in fact, what we have done today as a minority report from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is to release a report, here it is, on the impact that is happening because of America's retreat across the world and the opening that that gives to China. So I think it's very important for us to take strong action. China has moved in where the United States has shut down foreign assistance programs. They started doing that in days, describing China as the reliable partner and the United States as a partner that was not reliable. So it's important for us to keep the commitment that we make to our allies and partners.
Well, it's important that you bring up this report from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I wonder your thoughts if, in fact, these sanctions are put into effect, if that would have the impact on China that many suspect. But also, you're referring to the outreach that we've seen here from USAID and the effort to claw back some of the funding in this rescissions package that's before you now in the Senate has raised a lot of questions for Democrats about whether it will be possible to work with Republicans. Will that pass, that rescissions package, to begin with the USAID and NPR, PBS cuts? And if it does, will Democrats join Republicans in crafting a budget for the next fiscal year, or are talks officially off?
Well, we are working, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. We are working on the budget for the upcoming year. We already passed 2 bills out of the Appropriations Committee, Agriculture, where I'm the ranking member, and the programs that fund the operations of the Capitol and the legislative branch here. So I think that's positive progress. And the fact is, our Republican colleagues, in a bipartisan way, Republicans and Democrats have expressed concern about the threat that China poses to the United States. It's an economic threat, it's a military threat. And if we want to compete with China, as this report shows, then we need to be much more strategic about what our vision is. We need to stop rolling back our diplomatic efforts around the world. The soft power, the foreign assistance, that has been the hallmark of America's foreign policy for the last 60 years. We need to stop putting tariffs on our allies and partners who help make us as strong as we are. There are significant national security and economic implications for what this administration has done in terms of rolling back our ability to compete with China.